Hey, my favorite people, welcome back to my channel, Big Check Energy. This is our safe space to talk about anything like resumes, our notary business, anything you want to know about from the world of HR, because that's what I do. I'm an HR director here in Atlanta, and pretty much this is where I come to talk about whatever might pop up, your employment woes, your hustles that are your side hustles, your main hustles, anything in between. Lately, we talked a lot about my notary business, but I've been inserting a lot of helpful information, or at least what I hope is helpful information about, your employment journey. If you are working full-time, trying to work full-time, pivoting into a new career, anything under that umbrella is what I'm here to talk about. So, first things first, if you're not following me on Instagram, I don't know why you're not, but you need to come find me there because I talk about different content on there, and it's actually very helpful. It's different, but it's related. So I think you should come find me. It is pitch.hr. That's pitch.hr, and that's on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time, there and here. Sometimes I cross-share information, but for the most part, it's separate, but the same type of information. Second thing, I wanted to remind you all that I have a podcast now. I feel like that's being a little bit too, like I'm reaching, calling it a podcast. Really, it's just where I talk to myself and I hope someone listens. So I guess that is a podcast. I've had one guest thus far. That was Miss Brielle, who you all have met on my channel a couple times. Y'all love her. So she is on my very first episode. And my first episode was called Is Unfearful a Word? You've got to listen to that one. You can watch the video here, but if you haven't watched it here on the channel, then go ahead to the description below and you'll find a direct link to that very first podcast episode. I'd love it if you all could support me there with the podcast as well. I mean, I'm probably still going to record it even if you don't, because talking to yourself can be therapeutic. I mean, essentially, right now I'm talking to myself and I'm just kind of hoping that someone watches and listens. So here we are. But when it comes to the podcast, I really want to give as much helpful information as possible. Each episode is going to be 30 minutes or less. And it truly is going to be about whatever comes up related to employment, side hustles, main hustles, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video. So please come follow me. Come find me there. It should be going to the main podcast hosting sites. You can get to me directly. Now, this is the big thing. You can go directly to my podcast without going to a listening site. It's just bigcheckenergy.com. That will take you directly to the podcast. That will also still route you if you need to get to my pitch page, because I have a website for pitch as well. It's just pitchr.com. But if you want to specifically listen to the podcast, come on over to bigcheckenergy.com and you will find me there. Some people prefer to listen than to watch, so I try to have something for everyone. If you're curious about what I've talked about so far, I was like, it might be a good idea if I give you, some drops. Like I said, the first episode was called Is Unfearful a Word? And me and Brielle and I, you know what I'm talking about. We had a really, 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 really good conversation about how she chose to leave her full-time job and pursue her notary business and some other endeavors full-time. So that was a really good episode. We talked for about, I want to say 45 minutes. Now, that's the only one that's going to be that long. Actually, I think it was more like an hour, but the whole thing is super informative. And so that is episode 1. Episode 2, I got to remind myself. Episode 2 was called Paid in Full. Number 1, that's one of my favorite movies. If you've never seen it, I don't know how. It's a staple for me in the Black community. But Paid in Full is one of my favorite movies. A little violent for some, but it's one of my favorite movies. And it is the title of my second episode on the podcast. I called it that because it touches on an interesting story here in the metro Atlanta area, where a guy quit his job. I think he was a mechanic or something. He quit his job, and by law, his employer had to give him his final payment or his final check. And he did, except he did it in a super grimy way. And he had his entire pay, which was I think it was almost $1,000, delivered to this man's house and dumped on his driveway in pennies. Talk about petty. Now, I know I can be petty, but that's some petty shit. I'm just saying. So they dropped it, and not just panties, they were like oily panties, and he dropped them on his driveway. So now that company is facing a federal lawsuit because essentially that's retaliation. You can't do stuff like that. You got to pay the person, you got to keep it professional, and then just part ways. So that's episode 2. Episode 3 was called What to Ask HR Before You Quit. Now that one is filled with gems. That's me talking solo, specifically about the things you need to ask HR before you quit. That kind of stuff is the stuff that I like to share with people because you don't know what you don't know. And because I sit in the seat that I sit in, I know exactly what you need to ask your HR department before you quit. Or bare minimum, the answers that you need to find in your employee handbook or your company intranet to get the answers yourself. If you don't want to set off any alarms and ring bells and say, hey, y'all, I'm about to quit, then don't go directly to HR if you don't feel comfortable. You can find the answers yourself. But that's part of what I like to talk to people about. My live collaboration service on my website, pitchr.com, it's geared towards people wanting to update their resumes and update their LinkedIns. But there is opportunity for you to ask questions like that. And I offer up tons of information about the kinds of things you need to look into. And I actually really need to just add it as a separate service to help people kind of develop their exit strategy and quit their jobs like without leaving money behind, because that's the big issue is people just quit willy-nilly and they don't think about what their last date of employment actually impacts. Things like, when are you going to get your last check? When are you going to get your first check at your new job? Because there might be a gap and you don't want to be stuck out here looking stupid with an empty bank account, right? So that was episode 3. Episode 4 just was posted today. It was supposed to be posted yesterday, but I failed myself on the timekeeping this week. It's been a crazy week. So it's supposed to post. My episodes for my podcast should be live every first and third Friday of the month. So think about it kind of like pay dates. It's the first and third Friday of the month. Almost every other week, but some weeks, they fall a little weird. So just remember first and third Friday of the month. I'm going to try to post reminders here as well every time I post an episode. Like I said, the most recent one was posted this morning, although it should have been posted yesterday. So I was a day late, but not $1 short, okay? Because it's packed with information. And on this recent episode, what I talk about is, what is people operations? I've had a couple people ask me about that. I'm a director of human resources. I just hired a director of people operations. Her former title was director of human resources. The short answer is they're kind of the same thing, but it depends on what industry you work in. If you're in the technology space, especially if you're like with a startup, they're going to call it people operations. And so for people who are looking to segue and transition into HR, don't just look for HR titles, because I would say more hip companies are calling it people operations. Why did I say hip? I don't know why that was the word I chose, but whatever. More hip and modern companies call it people operations instead of HR. HR comes with a stigma of like some old lady sitting around in glasses, firing people and completing paperwork. And yes, I do fire people and complete paperwork, but that's not my whole job. That's not it. So before I forget, this episode touched on what is people operations. I talk about some of my go-to phone screening questions. Phone screening questions are difficult for some people because you're not looking at the person face to face, and so it's kind of hard to relay your personality and kind of think through things when you don't have those visible cues and body language cues. But I just give you some of my go-to questions, and I'm going to elaborate on that some more. It may not be in the next episode, but I will touch back on that topic because there's so much I can share about phone screens. And then the last thing I touched on was the salary question. Like, do you offer up your salary? How do people ask about what salary you want? But I just give you my perspective and what I actually ask and how I think people should answer questions. So, pretty much, to recap this video, come follow me on, I was about to say on Pinterest. Come follow me on Instagram if you are not already. It's pitch.hr. I will also put the links to everything below. Of course, please continue to come back and watch my videos Only if you find them helpful. If you don't find them helpful, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I do my best. I'm a one-woman show. And if you have questions about anything, or if you need help with your resume, or if you are interested in signing up for resume services, LinkedIn services, anything of that nature, interview prep. That is something a lot of people are in need of, but don't really pursue. I do resumes more than anything via my website, but please take a look at the interview options as well. I mean, there's really only one. I do interview prep for 45 minutes, and it is a game changer. While I don't have a ton of people who sign up for it, it is really, really, really helpful. People tell me this when they do it. So that's it for today for the most part. I am still continuing on my notary journey. I actually have a signing I need to go do today. But outside of that, I'm gonna chill today. I actually closed off my calendar this morning because I needed some R&R. My stomach just growled, sorry. I need some rest and relaxation this morning. I needed to sleep in a bit. So I have made my coffee in my Big Check Energy mug. Of course, these are available on the website. I will also put the link to them below. You need to get one. They're amazing. I don't know if you can tell without me spilling, but the inside is black. This is a high quality mug. This is a high quality mug. Let me just say that. So yes, thank you for joining me here today. Hopefully I catch you on the next video that I post. I'm trying to get better about posting more often. I really need to get myself on the schedule and just do better. Okay. We just need to do better. But find me here, find me on Instagram, and check out bigcheckenergy.com and take a listen to each and every episode, the first and third Friday of the month. Every episode is 30 minutes or less, except for the first one, because Miss Brielle, we could talk all day. So I'll see you all next time. Thank you for watching, and I really appreciate your support.